Hello, beautiful black people. I hope that all is well in your world and this day will progress very, very well for you and all of your wonderful, wonderful loved ones. My black brothers and sisters, know this, that there is an insatiable appetite among too many white folks for black death and black suffering. There is an insatiable appetite for black death and black suffering among too many racist white folks. It has been that way since the inception of this plantation called America for about 400 years now. Do you remember 1619? That's an important date. 1619. There was a Dutch ship. It arrived at Point Comfort, Virginia. And the arrival of that ship ushered in slavery right here on this plantation called America. That ship brought 20 odd kidnapped, enchained black Africans to the American shore. And that was the beginning. It's been almost 401 years since that. From that beginning in 1619, white folks have had their knee on our neck. You may ask the question, how did black folks get so marginalized economically? And the second question might be, how did black folks become so disenfranchised politically? And the third question might be, how did black folks become so uneducated, miseducated, etc., etc.? 1619, was the beginning of chattel slavery. Black folks being treated as an air conditioning machine, a tractor, just another commodity to be sold on the open market. Get whatever you can for it. In 1661, the first anti-miscegenation statute prohibiting marriage between races was written into law. In the state of Maryland, 1661, shortly after enslaved black folks were brought to the colonies. By the 1960s, 21 states, most of them in the South, still had laws in place that prohibited marriages between races. Alabama was the last state to repeal the ban on interracial marriages in the year 2000. They have always had their knee on our neck. Negroes to be sold. Negroes to be sold. This is what the ads would read. Just arrived from the Windward and Rich Quaff. The utmost care has already been taken and shall be continued to keep them, the slaves, free from dangers of being infected with the smallpox. No boat having been on the board, and all other communications with people has been prevented. In 1776, the Declaration of Independence, which embraced in its first lines that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, did not extend that right to the black slaves. Africans or African Americans, with the final version scrapping a reference to the denunciation of slavery. Thomas Jefferson, a slave owner himself, penned those lines rejecting slavery. He removed the reference after receiving criticism from a number of delegates who enslaved black folks. This could represent the fabric of the American political economy. Ever since, some historians have said, they always had their knee on our neck. Slavery flourished in the tobacco fields of Virginia, Maryland, and North Carolina. In the tobacco-producing areas of those states, slaves constituted more than 50% of the population. More than 50% of the population. According to, in the year 1865, according to Abraham Lincoln, the Civil War was fought to keep America whole, W-H-O-L-E, and not for the abolition of slavery, at least initially. Southern states said that they wanted to succeed to protect states' rights, but they were really fighting to keep people, black people, people that looked like me, enslaved. Lincoln took on the fight for the freedom of slaves. Some historians have suggested because Lincoln was worried that the British would support the South in its self-declared self-determination and recognize the South as a separate entity. If he had made war about ending slavery, it would have looked bad for the South's fight and the British supporting its cause. Lincoln's death was probably the first casualty of a long civil rights movement that is not yet over. Lincoln's death was the first casualty of the civil rights movement that is still ongoing today. They always had their knee on our neck. In 1898, the recession of the late 19th century hit the Americas. Night riders went out in the dark, burning the homes of black folks who bought their own land. They rode up to Washington, D.C. to demand change as Southern white racist Democrats rolled back many of the limited freedoms from Reconstruction just a couple of decades before. Remember, it was the Southern racist Democrats that destroyed Reconstruction and enhanced the era of Jim Crow. The Jim Crow era of segregation forbade black folks from drinking from the same water fountain, eating at the same restaurants, attending the same schools. All of this lasted until and sometime well past the 1960s. In 1926, black Americans was shut out of jobs and opportunities during Jim Crow. And as more jobs became available in the North and Midwest, more than 2 million Southern black folks migrated after the First World War. Still, even hundreds of miles away from Southern segregation, these migrating black Americans was met by sundown towns where black people were not welcome after sunset, and by restrictions on where they could live in all of those Midwestern, Western, and Northeastern cities. The state of Oregon's Constitution, for example, only removed its exclusionary clause prohibiting black folks to enter the state in 1926. They have always had their knee on our neck, my beautiful, intelligent black brothers and sisters. In 1965, slavery was gone, but Jim Crow was alive and well. Almost all Southern black folks were shut out of the ballot box and the political power it could have yielded. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 attempted to correct this, prohibiting racial discrimination in voting and placing restrictions on a number of Southern states if they tried to change voting rights laws. These restrictions was recently overturned in in 2013 Supreme Court by Justice Roberts and his racist, delusionist crew of justices, including that coon ass black boy on the U.S. Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas. Americans have had enough. Americans have had enough. American history of slavery should include the half that has never been told. Slavery and the making of America's capitalism. American slavery, 1619 through 1877. And black is a country. Race and the unfinished struggle for democracy. Americans have had enough and are marching for justice in unprecedented numbers in small towns and big cities across the country. Thousands of people are giving voice to the grief and anger that generations of black folks have suffered at the hands of the criminal justice system. Young and old, black and white, families and friends have joined together to say enough is enough. The unconscionable example of racism over the last few weeks and months comes at America's communities of color have been hit hardest by the COVID-19 disease and catastrophic job losses. This is a perfect storm hitting black folks. Meanwhile, the political leadership suggests that when the looting starts, the shooting starts. The white racist punk-ass white boy in the white boy house who promised to end the American carnage has made it worse. There's more carnage tenfold, my beautiful, intelligent black brothers and sisters. How did black folks get so marginalized economically? How did black folks get so disenfranchised politically? When the white boy, delusionist, racist white boy, have a knee on your neck, it is very difficult to progress, to move forward, to achieve, to attain anything. You're too busy trying to breathe, trying to stay alive. That's how black folks, people that look like me, got so marginalized economically, got so disenfranchised politically. It has been a contrived plan of wealthy, positioned, influential, racist white folks to keep black folks marginalized, to ostracize black folks, to miseducate black folks, to publicly lynch black folks, to criminalize black folks, to incarcerate black folks. And yes, to kill black folks, to maim black folks, to keep black folks in the place that these racist white folks have decided in their demented, delusionless minds that black folks should be. They have been white-splaining for black folks since the inception of this country. Bamboozled, hoodwinking other white folks. They have hoodwinked the world to think that white is supreme, and because of their whiteness, they are better than black folks. That's what I have on this one. Please go to thethrasherway.libsyn.com. There you will get access to all that I do.